Please all stand. This Coroners Court is now sitting.
Good morning. Today I will be hearing the inquests into the deaths of Jeffrey Keaton and Andrew O'Dwyer. I'll just take appearances, thank you.
My pleasure. My name's Castleton. I appear with my learned friend Mr Harker, assisting Your Honour in relation to those two matters.
Thank you, Mr Castleton.
Your Honour, Sir Carlos, I appear on behalf of the partner of the late Jeffrey Keaton and the wife of the late Andrew O'Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr Sakalis. All right, and I'd like to welcome the families that are in court today. Diane and Wes, yes, and I think Jessica, you're watching, and also Melissa. Thank you for being here again today. And sorry it's under such sad circumstances, but it's lovely to have you here in court, and for those who are watching as well. Our thoughts are very much with you all today.
In Your Honour,
Yes.
Apologise.
Oh, Mr Newton, sorry.
I
yes.
missed my appearance, but I appear on behalf of the Rural Fire Service, the National Parks and Wildlife Service and the Forestry Corporation of New South Wales.
Thank you, Mr Newton.
Your Honour, before I open the inquest, I should acknowledge also that Jeffrey's brother Philip is also present in court together with his partner Rachel.
Oh, Philip and Rachel, welcome to you too. Thank you.
Your Honour, these are the inquests into the deaths of Jeffrey Wesley Keaton and Andrew Joel O'Dwyer. Jeffrey and Andrew were volunteer firefighters with the Rural Fire Service. They tragically died at around 11:30 p.m. on 19 December 2019 while on duty responding to the Greenwattle Creek Lake Burragarang fire near Buxton. I will refer to Mr Keaton as Jeffrey and Mr O'Dwyer as Andrew, and note this is in order in keeping alphabetically with their surnames. An inquest is a public inquiry into a reportable death. The primary function of an inquest is to identify the circumstances of death. At the conclusion of these inquests, Your Honour is required by Section 81 of the Coroners Act 2009 to record in writing the fact that a person has died, and also record the person's identity, the date and place of death, and the manner and cause of death. There are 5 questions for the inquest to answer. Who died, where and when the person died, and how and in what circumstances the person died. A secondary purpose of an inquest is to consider whether it is necessary or desirable to make recommendations in relation to any matter connected with the death. The power is not limited to matters that are directly related to the manner and cause of death. Your Honour can consider more broadly whether any lessons can be learned from these deaths and whether anything should or could be done differently in the future, in particular to prevent a death in similar circumstances. Once the court has completed a consideration of the cause and manner of Jeffrey's death and the cause and manner of Andrew's death, and other fires and related deaths across the 2019-2020 bushfire season, the court will review the evidence and issues raised in each matter and determine which issues will proceed to further consideration via representative case study. This may include matters raised in connection with the work, health and safety investigation undertaken by the RFS and the vehicle Jeffrey and Andrew were travelling in at the time of their deaths. The hearing into representative case studies will occur at the Coroners Court here at Lidcombe, commencing on the 5th of September later this year. I will now provide a brief background and then describe the events of 19 December 2019 in some detail. Coming, if I may, to Jeffrey Keaton. Jeffrey was 32 years of age. He had been a member of the RFS for 13 years after joining the Plumpton Brigade in 2006 at the age of 18. He followed in his father, Wes's footsteps, another long-tier volunteer and member of the RFS. In 2012, Jeffrey transferred to the Horsley Park Brigade and eventually attained the rank of Deputy Captain. On the 2nd of April 2017, Jeffrey was awarded the RFS Long Service Medal for his 10 years service. Jeffrey left behind his parents, Diane and Wes, brother Phil and Phil's partner Rachel, his partner and mother of his child, Jessica Hayes, and his son Harvey, who is now aged 4. He was a loyal friend who loved his sport and outdoors. Jeffrey was farewelled at a funeral service at Pine Grove Memorial and Crematorium, Minchinbury, on the 2nd of January 2020, where he was remembered for his devotion to his brigade. He was posthumously awarded Commissioner's Commendation for bravery and service. Your Honour, we take this opportunity to acknowledge the tremendous loss to Jeffrey's family, friends and community. We also acknowledge the presence of Diane and Wes, Phil and Rachel in the courtroom today, together with Jessica and any other family members and friends of Jeffrey who may be watching these proceedings live. I now come to Andrew O'Dwyer. Andrew was 35 years of age. He had been a member of the RFS for 16 years after joining the Fairfield Brigade in 2003. Andrew transferred to the Horsley Park Brigade shortly after joining, where he continuously served his community until his death. Andrew attained the rank of Deputy Captain, and on the 27th of July 2013, he was awarded an RFS Long Service Medal for his 10 years service. Andrew left behind his wife Melissa and daughter Charlotte, who is now 4 years of age, together with his parents Errol and Margaret and his sister Amanda and her family. Andrew is remembered by the RFS for his passion and devotion to his brigade. He was also a talented photographer. He used his skills as a photographer to give the world an insight into the life of an RFS volunteer. Andrew's funeral was held at Our Lady of Victory's Catholic Church, Horsley Park, on 7 January 2020, where he was posthumously awarded Commissioner's Commendation for bravery and service. We take this opportunity to acknowledge the tremendous loss to Andrew's family, friends and the community. We also acknowledge the presence of Melissa in court today, together with other family members and friends of Andrew who may be watching these proceedings. Your Honour, we also acknowledge the joint loss of Jeffrey and Andrew to the RFS. The RFS state that Jeffrey and Andrew were great friends, with young children born just days apart from each other. They were part of a tight-knit brigade for whom their loss was devastating. In the face of that devastation, and to honour the memory and service of their colleagues, the members of the Horsley Park RFS Brigade were back in the field, battling the Greenwattle Creek fire, less than 36 hours after Jeffrey and Andrew had passed. It was an incredible display of selflessness in tragic circumstances. It is clear that Jeffrey and Andrew touched the lives of many. There have been numerous tributes to their lives and many years of service to the community. Wingecarribee Shire Council, on behalf of the communities of Balmoral and Buxton, dedicated a memorial marking the location where the vehicle in which Jeffrey and Andrew were travelling in at the time of their deaths came to a stop. In a collaboration between Wallandilly Council, the Horsley Park RFS Brigade, Buxton RFS Brigade and other community groups, a fire truck memorial playground was established in Tilapia Park, Buxton, and dedicated to the lives of Jeffrey and Andrew. On 19 December 2020, 1 year after their deaths, the Horsley Drive M7 overpass was renamed the Horsley Drive Keaton O'Dwyer Bridge. Your Honour, we also would like to acknowledge Jeffrey and Andrew's colleagues, Carlos Quinteros, Benjamin Fraser and Timothy Penning, who were all passengers in the impacted vehicle at the time of Jeffrey and Andrew's passing, and acknowledge the courage they displayed that evening in the face of devastating circumstances. For the benefit of those in court or watching the proceedings on YouTube, on 14 April this year, Your Honour, the State Coroner and members from the assisting team, including myself, attended an inspection of the incident site led by the officer in charge of the investigation, Leading Senior Constable Brian Wilson. At the time, we also paid our respects by way of attending the memorial plaque and reading the various messages left in commemoration. We extend our gratitude to Leading Senior Constable Wilson for his time, diligence and meticulously executed investigation, and for walking us through the site. The court has received a comprehensive brief of evidence which includes expert evidence from the New South Wales Police, statements from RFS members and other first responders, and photographs and other material. Several RFS personnel have provided statements in these proceedings which provide important detail of what occurred on the 19th of December 2019. We are grateful for their willingness to give evidence and support this coronial process in these difficult and tragic circumstances. This evidence will ultimately be relied upon with respect to submissions on the cause and manner of Jeffrey's death and the cause and manner of Andrew's death. Your Honour, I come now to the events leading up to the 19th of December 2019. As the court heard earlier this week, the Greenwattle Creek Lake Burragarang fire is believed to have commenced, possibly as a result of lightning strikes in remote bushland in the Blue Mountains National Park, sometime in the 48 hours prior to the sighting of the fire on the morning of the 27th of November 2019. On Saturday, 14 December 2019, backburning was undertaken in Natai National Park to the west of the village of Buxton. Just over 300 firefighters, 75 units, responded to Balmoral to contain a backburn that was not implemented as planned. That day, the fire, which was west of Buxton village, was mapped as spreading approximately 3 kilometres south, and a new era of fire was mapped south of Buxton and north of Balmoral. The fire at that time, 14 December 2019, was reportedly 112,000 hectares. 5 days later, on Thursday, the 19th of December 2019, the fire was reported as spreading extreme and anomalous abnormal distances and reportedly had spread to approximately 167,000 hectares in size. In the afternoon of 19 December 2019, the fire made a run to the east, impacting Balmoral and then Bargo. A southerly change then pushed the northern flank of the fire into Buxton. 47 homes and other structures were destroyed in Balmoral, Bargo and Buxton. The destruction and sheer ferocity of the fire faced by the communities and brave volunteers of the RFS on that day was horrific. It was this part of the fire that Jeffrey and Andrew were responding to on the 19th of December 2019. Coming to the evening of Thursday, the 19th of December 2019. That evening, between 6:30 and 7 p.m, Jeffrey and Andrew reported for duty alongside their colleagues at the Cumberland Fire Control Centre. Adam Hurst was the strike team leader. A strike team would ordinarily consist of 5 units of the same type, in this instance, a Category 1 appliance. On this day, the strike team was comprised of 4 vehicles, with the last vehicle having been damaged during the day and unable to join the group. The 4 vehicles travelling in the Cumberland Strike Team Bravo included Erskine Park 1, Horsley Park 1 Alpha, Castlereagh 1 and Regentville 1 Alpha. In addition, Adam Hurst was travelling in a separate RFS 4-wheel drive vehicle. Jeffrey and Andrew's vehicles identified as Horsley Park Alpha 1. It was a Category 1 New South Wales RFS truck, a 2015 diesel Isuzu FTS 800 four-wheel drive fitted with a tank of approximately 3,500 litres, which was fully loaded at the time. The vehicle had some cabin rollover protection in the form of a metal frame that reinforced the headboard at the front of the rear tray, which is identified in the following image. I just have displayed now the seating plan for Horsley Park Alpha 1, which is the vehicle that Jeffrey and Andrew were travelling in. As Your Honour can see from this seating plan, on the night of 19 December, Jeffrey was driving the vehicle that night. Andrew was in the front passenger seat. Behind Andrew was Benjamin Fraser. Timothy Penning was seated next to him in the middle rear seat, and Carlos Quinteros occupied the final seat behind Jeffrey. Your Honour, before the strike team departed, Adam Hurst conducted a briefing at the main staging area at Victoria Park at Picton, where all inbound strike teams coming into the area met. Adam states at the time no specific tasking was provided except to continue with general property protection. He stressed the need to be vigilant in relation to trees as well as the normal road hazards at night and dealing with the impact of firebrands or pieces of burning wood. Both Timothy Penning and Benjamin Fraser recall parts of that briefing. Timothy recalls in his statement that they were told to be careful because there were a lot of trees coming down. Benjamin recalls being advised that the fire had come through hot, hard and fast, so the trees had been pretty burnt out. Following the briefing, the strike team were directed to attend Peak Road, Buxton, to assist in the protection of properties. Upon arrival, they discovered that the fire had passed and local crews had the area under control. Adam Hurst states that he asked the team to remain at Peak Road and at the Buxton RFS station until he got further taskings from the division commander. This was because early intelligence reports recorded that there were power lines down along Wilson Drive at Buxton. At about 11 p.m, Adam Hurst drove along Wilson Drive to ensure it was passable and safe. There were no obstructions. The strike team was then directed by the division commander to proceed to Hall Road, some 7.2 kilometres south. This required them to travel along Wilson Drive. Adam Hurst states prior to departing, he informed his team that they had instructions to move to Hall Road, Balmoral, to assist with property protection and to monitor the fire conditions. He relayed those instructions to the strike team and requested they proceed to that location to meeting there so he could put them into position. He states that he reiterated to his team to proceed with caution, specifically and probably more so, noting that the trees that were on fire were small in nature. In those conditions, the strike team travelled along Wilson Drive in a single line convoy. I just have displayed now, Your Honour, a Google map of Wilson Drive which connects the two townships or villages of Balmoral and Buxton. Wilson Drive consists of one northbound and one southbound lane, separated by a broken painted dividing line. The area either side consists of rural allotments surrounded by the Natai National Park and Bargo State Conservation Area. The strike team travelled in convoy in the following order: Adam Hurst in the RFS four-wheel drive vehicle, followed by Erskine 1, Horsley Park 1 Alpha, Castlereagh 1, and then Regentfield 1. Adam Hurst recalls a slight breeze at the time, which you could tell from the embers thrown from the trees, but it wasn't gusting and would not have caused concerns. There was a slight smoke haze, but visibility would have been about 150 to 200 metres, so he had no concerns about driving. He states there was no direct or active fire in the area and recalls the temperature was hot, extremely dry and extremely smoky. Weather observations, Your Honour, from Camden Airport, the closest weather station, recorded a wind speed of 2 kilometres per hour with wind gusts of up to 8 kilometres per hour. Jeffrey and Andrew were in the second truck in the convoy. Benjamin Fraser says that they had the emergency light beacons on with no siren to help alert others that they were there due to the smoke. He recalls looking out the window and seeing small pockets of embers and smoke, but says it was not heavy and you could still see through it. Andrew Gregory, who was in the truck travelling directly behind Jeffrey and Andrew, observed it was dark. There were things smouldering, like bushes and trees down, that were still smouldering and light. There was a bit of haze, and as the wind was from the west, it was pushing the smoke to the east, so he had a good view of the back of Horsley Park 1 Alpha, which was about 100 metres ahead. The vehicle lights on. Andrew states you could see that little bit more. Right, I now come to the tree and its impact with the truck. I pause to inform Your Honour that the court will shortly hear about the details of the crash. If any person does not want to hear these details, they can leave the room or turn off their video now. I'll just have displayed, Your Honour, a Google map of Strike Team Cumberland's Bravo proposed travel route to Halls Road, Buxton. Shortly before 11:20 p.m, the convoy was travelling south along Wilson Drive. About 40 metres after passing Peregrine Lane, a large burning ironbark gum tree, approximately 30 metres in height, broke away from its base and impacted the roof and windscreen of Jeffrey and Andrew's vehicle. It is believed the vehicle was travelling at approximately 7 kilometres per hour. There is some evidence in the brief of evidence, Your Honour, that suggests that the weight of the tree may have been in the order of 3.1 tonnes, plus or minus 20%. I'll just have displayed Peregrine Lane to help Your Honour appreciate the distance between Peregrine Lane and the accident site. Your Honour, this tragic moment was captured by the vehicle's dash cam. That video has been enhanced and slowed down by the New South Wales Police Forensic Imaging Section. And I'll just have that shown now, but can I warn those in court and those watching that it could be confronting. Just have that played one more time, Your Honour. After impact, Jeffrey and Andrew's truck continued travelling forward from the southbound lane into the northbound lane for about 60 metres, dragging a tree branch which had broken away from the tree. At that point, the truck left the northbound lane and continued travelling up and along a dirt and vegetated embankment. After travelling a further distance of approximately 32 metres, the truck commenced to roll. It rolled 270 degrees before coming to a complete stop on its offside. Your Honour, we'll hear evidence from the officer in charge, leading Senior Constable Brian Wilson, Metropolitan Crash Investigation Unit, New South Wales Police, that there was no physical evidence of any braking or evasive action after impact. In his expert opinion, the force of the impact likely caused Jeffrey to immediately lose consciousness and as a result caused him to lose control of the vehicle. Andrew Gregory, who was in the truck travelling directly behind Jeffrey and Andrew, described seeing the tree come down instantaneously in front of their vehicle. He says they had no chance of stopping. He further describes that he saw the rear lights of the truck fishtailing across the road, veering left to right, and seemed to lose control before hitting a dirt gutter on the side of the road and becoming airborne. The truck then rolled and came to a stop on its side, with the passenger door facing upwards. Benjamin Fraser, who was directly seated behind Andrew, explains that he felt the tree crumple on him from his side. After the impact, he did not believe Jeffrey was in control of the truck. He says that it felt like the truck sped up a bit after being hit. Then a couple of seconds later, I felt us go down into the ditch and then we rolled. I'm not certain, but I believe the truck did a full roll, as I remember being upside down at one point. It is important to pause here and to reflect on the circumstances confronting the RFS members. They had just witnessed a tree fall onto a vehicle containing their mates. They witnessed that vehicle roll out of control and then ran to assist by providing immediate care. The enormity and bravery of their actions in this moment was extraordinary. The other crews in the strike team immediately went to provide first aid. A number of RFS crews in the area immediately responded to radio messages for help and attended the scene. It was evident to those responding that Jeffrey had not survived the impact. First aid was administered to Andrew before he quickly succumbed to his injuries. Benjamin Fraser and Timothy Penning were able to remove themselves from the back of the vehicle. The strike team and other arriving units worked tirelessly and successfully to free Carlos from the vehicle. Benjamin, Timothy and Carlos were each conveyed to the Liverpool hospital by ambulance, with serious injuries sustained as a result of the collision. At around 1 a.m. on the 20th of December 2019, the officer in charge of the investigation with the New South Wales Police, the leading senior constable Brian Wilson, arrived at the site. He observed the road surface was made of sealed bitumen and appeared to be in good condition. Further, the weather conditions were warm and dry, but the visibility was poor due to heavy smoke. He located the remains of the tree on the road surface, shoulder and nature strip, about 40 metres south of Peregrine Lane. It was split into two sections, one being about 20 metres in length. The base of the tree was 4 metres to the north. Your Honour will see a street view image of the tree from November 2018. The tree was about 4 metres east of the edge of the lane in which Jeffrey and Andrew were travelling. I'll just have displayed also, Your Honour, a photograph of the base of the tree, which is found at page 181-14. As Your Honour will see from this photograph, little was left of the base of the tree after the fall. The overwhelming majority of the tree detached from its base and fell towards the road. In the Work Health and Safety ICAM investigation report prepared by the RFS in relation to the incident, it states that this image shows that the tree had been burnt through by approximately 60%. Only 40% of the tree was left to support its gross mass. This, combined with several large branches hanging over the roadway, caused the tree to fall. The report posits that the remaining timber would have exhibited little control over the tree fall, with the fall instantaneous and unpredictable. Leading Senior Constable Wilson located scrape marks on the road surface in the immediate area of the fallen branches and formed the view that the marks were left on the road by branches dragging on the surface after falling under the moving vehicle. As outlined previously, Leading Senior Constable Wilson will also give evidence that he found no signs of an attempt by the vehicle to avoid any object, nor to slow down or react after the point of impact. It is his expert opinion that Jeffrey did not see the tree falling before impact. He did not even have the chance to do so, In his expert opinion, Jeffrey and Andrew were either knocked unconscious or killed immediately as soon as the tree impacted their vehicle. As well as hearing from leading Senior Constable Wilson, the court will hear evidence from Senior Constable Jeffrey Head of the Engineering Investigation Section of the New South Wales Police. Senior Constable Head carried out a forensic examination of the Isuzu vehicle. In his expert opinion, before impact, there were no mechanical defects in the vehicle that may have contributed towards the collision. Coming to the cause of death in relation to Jeffrey and Andrew. Both Jeffrey and Andrew's injuries were catastrophic. The autopsy found that Jeffrey died as a result of mechanical crush asphyxia. The autopsy of Andrew found that he died because of head injuries suffered during the accident. Your Honour, their loss was tragic, and it will continue to be felt by their families, friends, brigade and the broader community. Now, that concludes my opening remarks. If it's convenient, Your Honour, can I tender the brief of evidence in relation to the inquest into the death of Jeffrey Keaton and Andrew O'Dwyer? I understand that will be marked Exhibit 54.
Yes, that brief will be Exhibit 54. Thank you, Mr Castleton.
Your Honour, I propose now to call leading Senior Constable Brian Wilson.
Silence, please. You swear by Almighty God that the evidence you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. If so, please say, I do.
I do.
So, thank you.
Would you please state your full name, rank and unit to which you're attached within the New South Wales Police Force?
Yes, Brian Wilson. I'm attached to the New South Wales Police Crash Investigation Unit, working out of the Metropolitan Crash Office.
And do you hold the rank of leading Senior Constable?
Yes, I do.
And have you prepared a crash investigation report in relation to the deaths of Jeffrey Keaton and Andrew O'Dwyer?
Yes, I have.
And were you assigned as the officer in charge of the investigation in relation to those two deaths?
Yes, I was.
Do you have a copy of your statement with you, leading Senior Constable?
Yes, I do.
Can I just ask you, in relation to one matter of correction, if you turn please to page 9 of your statement, page 90 of the brief itself, Your Honour, to paragraph 22. Is there a minor typographical error there? You say this in paragraph 22, the Isuzu RFS tanker was located in a stationary final position resting upon its near side. Should near side in fact read offside?
Yes, that is correct.
Apart from that matter, leading Senior Constable Wilson, are there any other matters that require correction?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Could I just ask you to set out briefly your education, training qualifications and experience in relation to the investigation of motor vehicle collisions?
Yes, I've been a police officer for almost 12 years now. Previous to my attachment with the New South Wales Police Crash Unit, I was stationed at the Hawkesbury Local Area Command as a General Duties Officer for approximately 7 years before my appointment at the Police Crash Unit. I've been there almost 5 years now, attended whilst at the unit well in excess of 120 or more motor vehicle collisions, which approximately 40 of them I've been the officer in charge of.
Thank you. And in relation to your investigation in relation to Jeffrey Keaton and Andrew O'Dwyer, how did you come to be assigned the task of officer in charge of that investigation?
I was obviously rostered to work the evening of the collision. Just prior to the end of our shift, we were called to the scene. Upon arrival at the scene, it was determined that I would be the officer in charge of investigating the collision and the circumstances.
And did you attend the scene shortly after the incident had occurred?
Yes, we did. I arrived at approximately 1 a.m, which would have been the 20th of December, 2019.
And when you arrived, what observations did you make in relation to the general scene where the incident had occurred?
Obviously, the road was closed from all public access. It was declared a crime scene. It was smoky at the time. Weather was fine. The road was dry.
How would you describe the visibility? You mentioned smoky.
Yeah, it was driving to the scene, obviously, because the fire had come through the area. Visibility was fine. Probably there was smoky conditions. I had good visibility about 150 to 200 metres in front of me whilst driving. When we got to the scene, same sort of visibility. You could probably 200 metres, 300 metres of being able to see in front of you.
And in terms of the general location of the incident, it occurred on Wilson Drive.
That's correct.
And that's a road that joins the townships or the villages of Buxton and Balmoral.
That's correct, yes.
And does that road run in a sort of generally direction?
Yes, it does.
And how would you describe the road itself in that area where the incident occurred?
So the road's obviously of a bitumen seal. There's two lanes, one for travel of traffic in a north direction, one for travel of traffic in a south direction. Both lanes are separated by a broken painted line, which defines the north and southbound lanes. The lanes were approximately 3.2 metres in width. To the eastern side of that road, there was what we call an open dish drain. That would have been approximately about 1 metre to 1.2 metres wide, and approximately about 60 centimetres in depth, which ran adjacent to the southbound lane. And
on the western side, was there any drain or culvert or embankment?
It sort of did, yeah. There would have been, from memory, there was similar, but not as high of an embankment on the other side, but there was area for water to run off from the road.
I'll just have displayed now, if I may, Leading Senior Constable, some Google Earth maps of, firstly, the road, that is Wilson Drive, joining the two townships of Balmoral and Buxton. And then I'll have displayed a second one which zooms in to in terms of Wilson Drive, Leading Senior Constable, is it a busy arterial road from your understanding or not?
No, it'd be a local defined as a local road.
And I'll just show you the next image, which is a closer image of the scene itself. The area where the incident occurred, was there a laneway near to that called Peregrine Lane?
Yes, there was.
And where the vehicle came to rest, was that near towards the address known as 62?
Yes,
Wilson
that is
Drive.
correct.
And you see now on the screen a closer image which shows Peregrine Lane, and the pinpoint marked in red, is that near towards 62?
Yes, that is
Wilson
correct.
Drive. And the area that you conducted your scene examination was in effect between those two references?
Yes, it was.
Now, in terms of fire, was there any active fire from your observations when you attended at 1 a.m. on the 20th of December 2019?
Yes, there was active fire around, obviously, on travel to the collision scene. There was trees, still embers for trees. It wasn't an active fire, like burning out of control to that effect, but there was certainly spot fires around the area at the time that I arrived.
And once you've arrived, what methodology or steps did you take to commence your investigation into the likely cause of this incident?
Okay, so upon arrival at scene, obviously we spoke to the more senior RFS personnel that were at the scene. just to get a bit of a picture of what actually we were looking at when we first arrived. I then started to examine the scene back from Peregrine Lane, heading towards where obviously the tree had fallen onto the road surface. Started my examination at that point.
Just pausing there, to assist you in that description, I might have displayed now some photographs. And the first one is, and I'll tender these in due course, Your Honour. The first one that will be displayed now, is that a photograph that you took, leading senior constable, or one of your colleagues?
One of my colleagues would have taken that photograph.
And firstly, by reference to Peregrine Lane, where was this branch in reference to Peregrine Lane?
So that, of my understanding, that would be north of Peregrine Lane.
And you've mentioned in your report 2 branches. Is this one of the 2?
That's correct, yes.
And then if we go to the next photograph, is that please, thank you. Is that a close-up?
Yes, it is.
Of one of the same branch we saw a moment ago? And then if we go to the next one, is that the second branch?
Yes, that is correct.
And I'll take you shortly to a diagram that you've included in your report. Now, if one looks closely if we go back to that photograph, please. If one looks closely in the bottom right-hand corner of the image, do you see a scrape mark?
Yes, there is scrape marks.
I then take you to the next photograph in the bundle. Does one see there additional further scrape marks?
Yes, that is
on
correct.
the northern bound lane?
Sorry, that would be, they were travelling north, so that would be south, within the southbound lanes.
I thought they were travelling south.
They're travelling, sorry, they... Sorry, you are correct. Yes. Sorry, that would be in the northbound lane.
Heading towards...
Yes, to Balmoral.
Balmoral.
Yes,
Having come from Buxton, heading in a southerly direction
that's correct.
towards Balmoral. Do you agree with me that those scrape marks, of which there are a number, are contained in the northbound lane?
Yes, that is correct.
Heading towards Buxton.
That's correct.
Now, what's the significance, if any, of the presence of those scrape marks, in your opinion?
That would be
Roadway.
that would give an indication that these scrape marks were caused by the branches of the tree, as obviously it's fallen underneath the truck as the truck's moving forward.
Then I'll just take you forward, if I may, to photograph number. You see on the screen there some markers. Is that a photograph that was also taken by one of your colleagues?
Yes, it was.
Leading Senior Constable Wilson. And do we see there a photograph of some furrow marks?
That is correct, yes.
And as one looks into the image, are we looking back towards where the tree had come down?
Yes, that is correct.
So we're looking in a generally northerly direction towards Buxton. And firstly, would you agree with me that one sees an embankment in that photograph?
Yes.
And also beneath the embankment, a table drain?
Yes.
And we agree with me that that's facing west. That is, it's on the westerly side of the roadway. And can you just explain for Her Honour what the purpose of those various markers were, and to have a photograph taken of that?
Yeah, so upon an examination of the furrow marks, we used our markers, which are represented in the photograph, to depict the trail of which the furrows lead through as the travel of the path of the truck, effectively after it's left the road.
And I'll take you now to your diagram, which is found on page 13 of your report, Leading Senior Constable, page 94 of the
Yes.
brief of evidence, figure 1. I'll just have that displayed for the benefit of those in court. Now, thank you. Now, essentially what we see in figure 1, page 94 of the brief of evidence, is the scene of the incident generally between Peregrine Lane, which would be to the right of letters A and B,
Yes.
and then to the left of the last pictorial representation would be about 62 Wilson Drive.
That's correct, yes.
Now, does A represent the gum tree that came down onto the vehicle?
Yes, it does.
And there are a number of arrows emanating from A. What do they represent, Leading Senior Constable Wilson?
They represent the branches that were laying upon the road surface of the gum tree.
Thank you. And similarly, does the letter B represent the scrape marks that were observed on the roadway?
Yes, they do.
And you've identified those, have you not, in this diagram by 2 arrows?
That is correct, yes.
Now, approximately, is the distance between the scrape marks that are represented by B and C, which are furrow marks,
That's correct, yes.
about 60 metres?
Yes, that would be true.
Now, C represents tyre furrow or rut marks.
Yes.
And from that point where they first commenced until where the vehicle came to a stop on its side, was that approximately 32 metres?
That would be correct, yes.
So in terms of, broadly speaking, from where the tree may have come down onto the vehicle until when the vehicle has come to a complete stop is in the order of about 92 metres.
Yes, that is correct.
Now, in terms of speed, was there a speed limit in relation to the road on
Yes, there was.
And do you remember what it was?
I believe it was 100 kilometres an hour.
And in relation to the likely speed the vehicle was travelling, did you deduce by reference to the dash cam
Yes, that is correct.
footage that it may have been in the order of 70 kilometres per hour?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, from your observation, did you make any observation of any brake marks on the roadway in the vicinity of the tree or between the tree and when the vehicle came to a stop?
No, I didn't. There was only the scrape marks.
Did you make any observations of any evasive manoeuvres that the driver, Jeffrey, may have taken as a result of the tree coming down?
No, I didn't.
And based on your many years of experience, what did that lead you to form by way of a conclusion as to the likely mechanism involved in relation to this?
From the evidence examined at the scene and the evidence we collected, that it was, in my opinion, it was likely that Jeffrey had no control of the motor vehicle once the tree branch had hit the top of the truck. For there to be, if there was control of the vehicle, you would probably more than likely find that there would be steering input to the left, which would show rut marks going to the left, and the truck would effectively end up onto the left side of the road or overturned in the dish drain as it travelled forward.
You were able to locate the dash cam from the
Yeah, that's
vehicle?
correct.
And did you, in collaboration with the forensic imaging section of New South Wales Police, enhance some portion of the dash cam footage?
Yes, they did, and yes, I did.
And were you in court this morning when that was played?
Yes, I was.
And having undertaken your examination of the scene and having seen the dash cam footage, what opinion did you arrive at as to the most probable cause of this tragic incident?
In my professional career as a police investigator, specifically for major crashes, we commonly term a scene we go to as a collision, not as an accident. With a collision, normally you have driver input into why a collision's occurred. A lot of people make reference to accidents. This is probably the first accident scene that I've been to in my career in the crash unit that I can actually say that it is an accident, just by the tree obviously falling on top of the truck.
Do I take it then that there was simply, in your opinion, simply nothing that Jeffrey Keaton could have done to avoid it?
That is my
The
opinion.
falling branch?
That's my opinion.
And were you aware as part of your investigation, leading Senior Constable Wilson, that Jeffrey Keaton was a professional truck driver?
Yes, he was.
And had you come to learn as part of your inquiries that he was regarded as a safe and good driver?
Yes, he was.
Just finally, if I may, leading Senior Constable, did you see displayed this morning as part of the opening a seating arrangement of the occupants
Yes,
of
I
the
did.
vehicle? And do you agree that obviously Jeffrey was the driver?
Yes.
In the front passenger or near side seat was Andrew O'Dwyer. Seated behind him was Benjamin Fraser.
Yes.
And in the middle was Timothy Penning.
Yes, he was.
And then behind Jeffrey was Carlos Quinteros.
Yes, he was.
It was in the rear offside or driver's side
Yes.
seat. Yes, thank you, Your Honour. That's just finally. Did a colleague of yours, which we'll hear evidence from shortly, undertake a mechanical
Yes, he did.
inspection of the vehicle?
Yes.
And did that reveal that there were no mechanical defects that may contribute
That is correct.
to this incident?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just one moment. I'll see if there's any questions.
Yeah, that's fine.
Legal representatives, Mr.
No,
Sakalas.
Your Honour.
Mr. Newton.
No, Your Honour.
Thanks very much, Leading Senior Constable.
Your Honour, the next witness is Senior Constable Jeffrey Head. He will be appearing by ABL, so we might need just a little time to bring him in, and Mr. Harker will lead his evidence.
Thank you. Just waiting for Senior Constable Head now. Senior Constable Head, I'm just checking to see if you are in the room. We can't see you.
I think we have the connection, Your Honour, just not the senior
It's not-
constable.
Right.
Make some inquiries with my instructors, see if we can find him. Your Honour, perhaps this would be a convenient time to
Yes.
adjourn.
Could take the morning adjournment, or is it just a shorter?
We haven't been able to contact him, so perhaps we take the morning adjournment.
Let's take a 5-minute adjournment and try and locate him.
Silence, please, all stand. This coroner's court is temporarily adjourned. This coroner's court resumes.
Yes, I see that we have Senior Constable Head there now. Can you see and hear us in the courtroom, Senior Constable?
Yes, I can.
You'll just hear from the court officer now.
Silence, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you, Senior Constable. Mr. Harker.
Thank you, Your Honour. Would you please state your name, rank and unit in the New South Wales Police Force?
Yeah, my name is Jeffrey Head. My rank is Senior Constable, and the unit that I work for is the Engineering Investigation Section, and we're part of the Forensic Evidence and Technical Services Command.
And Senior Constable, you prepared an expert certificate for the purposes of this inquest?
Yes, that's correct.
For the convenience of the court, that's at tab 35 of the brief.
Thank you.
Do you have a copy of that expert certificate before you today?
Yes, sir, I do.
And is the opinion set out in that expert certificate still your opinion?
Yes, sir, it is.
There's one small matter by way of correction in that expert report. If I could take you to paragraph 8, it's on page 226 of the brief. State that an examination was carried out on the 8th of January 2019. Should that be 2020?
Yeah, you're right. Yep, sorry, my bad. Yes, that's correct. It should be 2020.
You set out at paragraph 5 of that certificate your qualifications. In relation to those, you're a qualified mechanic.
Yes, that's correct.
You say that you've spent 10 years full-time trade experience. Is that as a mechanic?
Yes, that's right.
Did you work on heavy vehicles in that time?
Mostly light vehicles, but I had worked on heavy vehicles, yes.
And how long have you been in the engineering investigation section of the New South Wales Police?
Over 3 years now.
And you regularly carry out forensic mechanical examinations as part of your role in that section?
Yes, that's correct. 90% of our work is that job.
So on the 8th of January 2020, you attended the Smithfield holding yard?
Yes, that's right.
And you saw a rural fire service truck marked Horsley Park 1 Alpha?
Yes, that's right.
What was the make and model of that truck?
It was a Isuzu FTS 800.
Did the truck have any rollover protection that you could see?
In the rear, I believe it had some rollover protection, but not at the front of the vehicle, no.
I'll just bring up an image now. So is it the steel, the rollover protection that you're referring to, is that the steel frame between the cabin and the rear tray?
Yes, that's correct.
So we can take that down now, thank you. So what was the purpose of your forensic mechanical examination?
So our unit conducts mechanical examinations for various reasons. This particular vehicle fell into the category of it being a coronial matter. 2 persons had become deceased in relation to this vehicle accident, and therefore the mechanical examination was conducted on this vehicle to see if there was any mechanical faults or defects with the truck that may have contributed to the collision occurring.
Can you take the court through how you went about your examination?
So our examinations are conducted and we go over basically what we would call the food groups of a vehicle and it's being able to operate. Those include the vehicle's acceleration system, the vehicle's braking system, the vehicle's steering system, and the vehicle's suspension system, along with other systems that may have had a contributing factor in relation to the collision. In this particular instance, the truck presented in a semi-condition that we would call an undrivable condition. The undrivable condition was due to the severe cabin deformity that had occurred due to collision at the front of the truck. The front cabin had been severely impact damaged, causing the cabin to be damaged from the front to the rear of the truck due to significant intrusion into the driver's head and torso type areas of the vehicle. So the A pillars, which are the first front pillars of the truck, had been significantly damaged and pushed backwards. This truck, we were able to check the steering via the steering wheel, and we were able to get full lock left and full lock right of the vehicle via the actual steering wheel. So we're able to conclusively state that all the steering was connected, and that at the time of the incident, we believe that the steering was working correctly. Same with the suspension on the vehicle. We got underneath the vehicle and had a look at the front and rear suspension and saw that it was all connected and intact, and any damage that was found to be due to the collision occurring. Everything with the suspension of the vehicle was found to be in a serviceable condition. I was able to start the truck up in the condition that it was in. However, I found that the vehicle was unable to be revved. This was due to an electrical issue with the accelerator pedal of the truck. I had found that a connector from the accelerator pedal had come off, and I was able to reconnect that connector to the accelerator pedal, and the vehicle was able to be revved. The vehicle revved and returned to idle without issue. The reason the connector had come off the accelerator pedal was due to the collision damage, causing the front cab to be deformed and the wiring loom to be pulled from its position, causing that plug to come off. So I don't believe that issue with the accelerator would have been present prior to the collision occurring. I believe it is as a result of the collision that plug has come off. So I believe that the accelerator system was working correctly prior to the collision occurring. The vehicle's tyres were all found to be in a roadworthy condition. They were all inflated. I did find some damage to the rims, I believe, on the rear of the truck, which were only in the aspect of being buckled. However, all vehicle tyres were holding pressure and all had adequate tread. I don't believe that there was any issues with the vehicle's tyres, and nor would they contribute to the collision occurring. The brakes were tested on this truck. The brakes were found to be what they call a hydraulic over air system. So the vehicle used two methods of supplementary power, which were a hydraulic advantage and also an air advantage. So the driver's brake pedal was operated by air, which sent air down to two master cylinders, which operated the front and rear brakes via hydraulics. We found all those systems to be working correctly. The brake lockup at each wheel, being the front wheels and the rear wheels, was found to be serviceable, and there was no issues detected with the braking system at all. Further to that, we did a check at the vehicle's electrics and found headlights were working at the time. Headlights were working during our inspection, being low beam and high beam were both operating. The issue that was found during the examination was, I believe, one of the wipers had been damaged. However, it was as a result of the collision, being the cabin deformity. Apart from that, there was no other non-crash related issues detected with the vehicle's electrical system. So all in all, with the examination, we found that prior to the collision damage occurring, that the vehicle was in a serviceable condition, which means it was in a condition able to be driven and handled and operated correctly.
So you found no evidence of any mechanical failure prior to the accident?
That's correct.
And no evidence of any defect prior to the accident?
That's correct.
Your Honour, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Sakalas? Mr. Newton?
No questions, Your Honour.
Thanks very much, Senior Constable. You're excused.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Your Honour, I think that'd be a suitable time to take the morning adjournment.
All right, we're going to take the morning adjournment now and we'll resume at 11:45.
Silence, please, all stand. This Coroners Court is temporarily adjourned. Silence, please, all stand. This coroner's court.
Yes, Mr Castleton.
My pleasure, Your Honour. I call Adam Hurst.
Mr Hurst, can you see and hear us in the courtroom? Just repeat.
I can, Your Honour.
Oh, excellent. You'll just hear from the court officer now.
Silence, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you, Mr Hurst.
Mr Hurst, would you please state your full name?
Yeah, Adam Craig Hurst.
And what is your present business address?
Current business address is 42 Lamb Street, Glendenning, New South
And
Wales.
what is your, sorry to cut you off, what is your occupation?
Currently an area mitigation coordinator for the New South Wales Rural Fire Service.
And how long have you held that role as area mitigation coordinator with RFS for?
I commenced the role in May 2020.
And as at 19 December 2019, were you a volunteer firefighter for the New South Wales Rural Fire Service?
That's correct.
And at that time, did you hold a position of strike team leader?
That's correct. Strike team leader, rank of deputy captain.
And how long, firstly, had you held the rank of deputy captain as at that time in December of 2019?
I believe 6 years, 7 years.
And in terms of your performing your role as a strike team leader, as at December of 2019, approximately how long had you held that position for?
Strike team leaders are usually held the rank of deputy captain or above. So as a strike team leader, I've been doing that role since 2014.
I'll return to that shortly, if I may, Mr Hurst. Have you provided two statements in relation to the incident concerning Jeffrey Keaton and Andrew O'Dwyer?
That's correct.
And do you have those two statements with you today?
I do.
And is one dated it may be undated, in fact. Sorry, I correct that. Is the first one dated 6 November 2020?
That's correct.
And have you read that recently, Mr Hurst?
Briefly.
Are there any matters that require any correction or clarification as far as you're concerned?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And your second statement, do you have that with you?
I do.
And was that a statement that you completed on the 26th of April this year?
Correct.
And are there any matters that require any correction or clarification in relation to that second statement of 26 April 2022?
Not to my knowledge.
You mentioned a moment ago that you performed the role of strike team leader since perhaps 2014. Had you performed that role for each fire season since 2014 until 2019 or not?
I had, yes.
And could you just explain for Her Honour's benefit, what are the roles and responsibilities of a strike team leader within the New South Wales Rural Fire Service?
Certainly. General role of a strike team leader is to lead a unit or number of units of RFS vehicles and appliance, taking control of up to 25 people. The general procedures is obviously to respond to emergency situations, hazard reduction burns of the like, and to basically be their coordinator in a sense to ensure that they're appropriately tasked, welfare's provided, and we get home.
And moving to 2019, Mr Hurst, and in particular mid-December of 2019, were you assigned as a strike team leader in relation to responding to a fire that had become known as the Green Wattle Creek or Lake Burragorang fire?
Yes, I was.
And doing the best you can today, when did you first commence to undertake your role as a strike team leader in relation to the Greenwattle Creek fire?
The first time I had undertaken the role was early December. Date I wasn't not exactly aware of. I can't recall now. And also on the 19th of December, I was allocated as the strike team leader to replace a existing strike team that was at Greenwattle.
And apart from the Greenwattle Creek fire, had you, for that fire season, 2019, been assigned to perform the role of strike team leader in relation to other fires burning throughout New South Wales?
Correct. My first deployment was actually to southeast Queensland, then into Kempsey in the northern New South Wales, the Drake fire in Tenterfield, and also the Gospers Mountain fire on a number of occasions.
Now, moving to Greenwattle Creek and to that period of time around the 19th of December, had you, before the 19th of December, other than the earlier part of December, undertaken any active firefighting duties in response to the Greenwattle Creek fire?
I'd been deployed as a firefighter in another appliance in the days leading up to the 19th of December to the Greenwater fire in the Orangeville-Warromby area.
And you said in your statement that that was perhaps the Monday or Tuesday before the incident that occurred on Thursday, the 19th of December. Could you just describe the fire conditions around Orangeville on those 2 days that you were undertaking active firefighting duties as a volunteer?
Yeah, certainly. I think there's, and I might just make a correction there, on the days prior to the 19th, I'd actually been sent down to undertake backburning operations within the Balmoral area, where I referenced my time as a volunteer firefighter, or was a firefighter earlier, was probably prior to that date. But in regards to your question, those days I was taken down to be the sector commander in the Balmoral area to implement a backburn.
And did that backburn, to your understanding, go as planned or not?
No, we'd commenced the backburn, but it was stopped on the 14th of December.
And did you have any further involvement between the 14th of December and 19th December in and around the Balmoral, Bargo, Buxton areas or not?
Yes, I did. On the Sunday and Monday, I was tasked to undertake some reconnaissance work within the area, familiarisation, and looking for potential weaknesses in the containment lines within that area and provide intel back to the incident management team.
Moving to the 19th of December, which was a Thursday, what were you tasked with in relation to your obligations as a strike team leader?
So the Cumberland district had a strike team undertaking a day shift on the 19th. My responsibility was to replace that strike team for a night shift.
And how many units or teams were within that strike team that you assembled?
We're replacing the trucks that are already in the field. When we had left the Cumberland zone, there was 5 operating appliances. However, on arrival to the strike, to the staging area at Victoria Park, one of the appliances was unserviceable, which we dropped that from the strike team. So we had 4 in total.
And were they, in no particular order, Horsley Park 1 Alpha?
Correct. Erskine Park 1, Orangeville 1, and Castlereagh 1.
And did you, on that occasion, travel in an RFS 4-wheel drive utility vehicle?
That is correct.
Now, in terms of the briefing, did you all initially meet at the Cumberland Fire Control Centre?
We assembled at the control centre where the crews were transported in a bus to the staging area at Victoria Park, Picton.
And at any time between meeting at the Cumberland Fire Control Centre and travelling to Victoria Park, Picton, was any briefing undertaken by you or, to your observations, anyone else about what was to occur on that day?
The briefing undertook at Victoria Park once we'd assembled and were assigned our appliances.
And as the strike team leader, did you provide the briefing to those other units?
I did, yes.
And can you just, in general terms, explain, Ronna, what that briefing entailed at Victoria Park, Pixton, on the 19th of December 2019?
Certainly, it was a briefing on the current fire conditions or the situation within the area, what our objectives were, and also then in regards to any administrative and safety points that need to be called out. So in general, and usually I will give the guys a brief around, any pertinent points around safety. So in this instance, my focus was on falling trees, given previous experience within the fire season. The road conditions, also that there was a number of structures that had been on fire. So in regards to, safe working around those structures, but also safe driving.
And Mr. Hurst, doing the best you can today, about what time did the briefing take place at the staging area at Victoria Park at Picton?
It was just after 8 p.m.
And from that location at Victoria Park at Picton, where did the convoy travel next?
Next port of call was to report into the divisional commander at the Tamor Inn, which was on the eastern side of the fire. The strike team did have to stop for fuel at the BP service station in Picton before we proceeded to Tamor Inn.
And when you arrived at Tamor Inn, did you then undertake a further briefing in relation to what you were required to do that evening?
Yeah, under the instruction of that divisional commander, we were reassigned to a divisional commander on the western side of the eastern extent of the fire, which was in Balmoral. And the tasking was to undertake property protection in and around Buxton, specifically Peak Road, due to a potential fire front approaching.
Did you and the other appliances travel to that area around Peak Park at Buxton or not?
Correct. We proceeded to Peak Road in Buxton to undertake property protection.
And did you in fact undertake property protection at that time or a later time at that area or not?
No, we did not. Once we arrived there at Peak Road, the fire had already been through, and with a number of properties already destroyed or damaged by the fire.
What were you then assigned to do after that time?
Given that the change of taskings, I decided to leave the strike team or the appliances at Buxton, where it was relatively safe, and made a decision to proceed down to have a face-to-face conversation with the divisional commander at Balmoral, at the Balmoral RFS station, to seek further instructions or taskings.
And about what time of the day is this?
This was probably closer to prior to 11 p.m.
And did you drive from Peak Road, Buxton to Balmoral?
Correct, I did traverse down Wilson Drive to Balmoral Station.
And doing the best you can today, how would you describe Wilson Drive as you left Buxton and drove Wilson Drive to Balmoral, to the station there?
Yes. Look, the drive was, the road was clear, hence my intent to drive the road myself. Early indications that there was power poles or wires down. So I wanted to make sure that the road was clear and safe to traverse, and making an assessment on the way through. Visibility is around 150 to 200 metres. There was a slight breeze, which was pulling smoke across from the fire on the western side. However, it was clear enough to be able to see a good distance in front. But otherwise, it was a clear road.
What, if any, risk assessment did you undertake as you drove Wilson Drive, additional to what you've just described to Coroner just now?
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, with the driving that road, it was heavily forested on either side. So as to undertake, I guess, a quick dynamic assessment on the trees, the stability of trees along the area, whether they were fire impacted or not. And there was a number of notable trees that were fire impacted, and which I made caution to the crews later on.
In terms of making caution to the crew, how did you relay your observations and or any concerns you may have held in relation to that portion of the road to the crew?
Before I instructed the crew to traverse from Buxton to Balmoral, I did radio message to the crews to be vigilant and pay caution to trees, a general, I guess, safety broadcast to the strike team, just to be vigilant with the trees along the area as they had been fire impacted.
Did you remain at Balmoral when you made that radio message to the crew?
I did, yes.
And was it your intention that the crew of 4 appliances would meet you at the Balmoral RFS station?
That is correct. I called them through to meet me actually at Hall Road in Balmoral, where our tasking was to undertake property protection in the properties to the rear of Hall Road.
And in that period of time as you drove from Buxton to Balmoral at around about 11 p.m. that evening, the 19th of December, was there active fire to your observation in the area or not?
There were small pockets of active fire of burn area. There's still a number of trees on fire. So I would say there's no ferocious, I guess, fire fronts coming through, but there was active fire in the area.
Now, in terms of the appliances that you were leading, Horsley Park 1 Alpha, did you know the occupants within that vehicle prior to that evening, the 19th of December?
Yes, I did.
Had you worked with them before as part of your duties as a volunteer New South Wales Rural Fire Service officer?
Yes, I had.
And I take it Jeffrey Keaton was known to you as a result of those interactions?
Yes, I'd worked a number of times with Jeff.
And from your interactions with Jeffrey, how would you describe him as an individual?
In regards to his time on the fireground, a trustworthy person. It was someone that I could give a task to and he would undertake that and execute that task, and generally a very jovial and happy person.
And in terms of his duties as a truck driver, what, if anything, would you say in relation to his capability in driving heavy vehicles?
I was aware Jeff was a professional truck driver, and I did have all faith and trust in Jeff's capabilities, especially in firefighting operations. And
in relation to Andrew O'Dwyer, had you had a number of interactions with him prior to the 19th of December 2019?
I had, yes.
And how would you describe Andrew as an individual?
Andrew was, as I would say, a very happy person, always willing to do anything for anyone, and was, a switched on gentleman.
And at this time, December 2019, were you aware that both Jeffrey and Andrew were experienced volunteer firefighters within the New South Wales Rural Fire Service?
Yes, I was.
What type of appliance was Jeffrey driving on that evening?
Category 1 bushfire tanker.
And does that hold about 3,500 litres of water?
That is correct.
And does it also hold in the rear of the cabin a place for 3 other occupants?
It has potential to hold 4 other occupants in the rear of that cabin. On this evening, on the 19th of December, there was 3.
And I take it, Mr. Hurst, you know Carlos Quinteros and Tim Penning and also Benjamin Fraser.
I do, yes.
Had you, prior to the 19th of December 2019, worked with those three gentlemen?
I had, and not as much as Jeff or Andrew.
At some point after you've given the caution warning to the crew, did you hear something over the radio?
I did. I had a faint call for assistance from, I believe, the Regional 1 Alpha crew. Due to the distance between myself and the strike team, it was very faint, but I knew something had occurred and something was wrong.
And did you then travel, Mr. Hurst, from Balmoral back in a northerly direction towards Buxton?
I did, yes.
And did you, partway along Wilson Drive, come upon Horsley Park 1 Alpha overturned on its side?
I did, yes.
And did you then take control at that time when you arrived, in effect, as the incident controller for what was undergoing at that point in time?
I did, yes.
And did you make observations that other RFS crew members were attending to first aid of the occupants of the Horsley Park 1 Alpha appliance?
That is correct. The members from the Cumberland strike team.
That concludes my examination.
Thank you, Mr. Castleton.
No, Your Honour.
Carlos, Mr. Newton.
I have no questions, Your Honour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurst. You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Your Honour, the next witness is joining by AVL as well, and I call Carlos Quinteros.
Mr. Quinteros, I see you're just coming into the room now. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. You'll just hear from the court officer now.
Silence, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Quinteros, would you please state your full name?
Carlos Edgardo Quinteros.
And can you provide a business address, please? Work address?
I work in Roselle at the moment. I don't know the exact address. Just started there.
And were you a volunteer firefighter with the New South Wales Rural Fire Service on the 19th of December 2019?
Yes, that's correct.
Are you still a volunteer with the New South Wales Rural Fire Service?
Yeah, currently still.
And
That's correct.
which brigade are you assigned to at the moment?
Horsley Park.
Have you been provided with an unsigned statement bearing your name, dated the 16th of January 2020?
Yes, that's correct.
Have you read that statement recently?
Yes, I have.
Do you agree with the contents contained within that statement?
Yeah, most of it. There's one part that states that I was extracted from the vehicle by other members, which is incorrect. I pulled myself out of the vehicle.
Apart from that matter, Mr. Quinteros, are there any other corrections that you wish to make to that unsigned statement?
No, not at this stage.
Do you otherwise adopt the contents of that statement, apart from that matter of you extracting yourself from the vehicle?
Yes.
Now, were you an occupant in an appliance that was given the name Horsley Park 1 Alpha on the 19th
Yes.
of December.
Yeah, that's correct.
And at that time, how long had you been a volunteer firefighter for?
I'd say 5 to 6 years max. Yeah, I can't remember the exact time that I joined.
And had you always been a member of the Horsley Park Brigade, or had you been a member of some other brigade prior to December of 2019?
No, with the RFS only with Horsley Park.
And how did you come to being a crew member of Horsley Park 1 Alpha on 19 December 2019?
Like most other members, put your hand up and volunteered to participate in the fire season that was currently running through.
And did you volunteer for a shift or a roster for that afternoon, early evening of 19 December 2019?
Yes, I did.
And did you meet other members of the Horsley Park Brigade at the Cumberland Fire Control Centre?
Yes, I did.
And were those other crew members Jeffrey Keaton, Andrew O'Dwyer, Benjamin Fraser and Tim Penning?
Yes, that's correct.
And were you taken by bus from the Cumberland Fire Control Centre to Victoria Park at Picton?
Yep, that's also correct.
And at that time, when you've arrived at Victoria Park Picton, were you given a briefing as to what was to occur for the remainder of the day?
Yeah, once we changed over with the outgoing crews, we all huddled together and had a briefing done by Adam.
And when you refer to Adam, are you referring to Adam Hurst?
Yeah, that's correct.
And doing the best you can today, Mr. Quinteros, what was the briefing about that Mr. Hurst delivered?
Basically, the same one we get at any fire ground is just what to expect and the safety stuff that goes with it, which is standard basically at every fire that we've been to.
Are you able to be more specific today or not?
Look, there was an emphasis on the fact that there was burning trees and structures that were already burnt and that they were raised of concern.
And at that time, were you informed by Mr. Hurst that you were required to undertake property protection around Buxton?
Yes.
And did you leave that area at Victoria Park at Picton and travel towards Buxton to undertake property protection?
Yeah, we went to Buxton shortly after refilling the trucks and trying to find service station to go do that.
And did you, in fact, carry out any property protection at Buxton or not?
No, unfortunately, we didn't.
And do you know why that was?
By the time we got there, we were told that the fire had already run through there. And after, I think, a quick scour of the area, there was no point.
Did you assemble somewhere to await further instructions?
Yeah, we assembled next to a childcare centre. Can't remember the two street names on a T intersection across the road from a bus stop. And we waited there till further instructions.
You received some further instructions later that evening?
Yeah, that's correct.
And what were those instructions, doing the best you can today, that you were given?
We got reassigned to go to Balmoral to do also property protection, and we were going to meet our team leaders, strike team leader there, and go from there, I guess.
And your strike team leader was Adam Hurst, was it not?
Yes, that's correct.
And in terms of other appliances, do you remember what other appliances were in your strike team?
The only one that I can remember freshly off the top of my head is Regentsville, because they were the ones that were parked right next to us on the intersection. And there was another few parked down the other side of the street, but memory doesn't recall at the moment.
And do you remember where Adam Hurst was when you've left that staging area to head towards Balmoral?
Off the top of my head, I can't say no. I'll say no. I know that he'd done a few circuits of the area and was popping in and out, but We went off the instructions given to us by Andrew and Jeff, and then it was time to move. We just boarded our truck and got ready to move out.
And doing the best you can, about what time of the evening was this, Mr. Quinteros?
It would have been in and around before 11 o'clock, somewhere around that time.
And as you headed out, were you heading in a direction towards Balmoral?
That's correct. From where we were, we crossed over the railway line. We turned left and started heading up towards Balmoral.
And do you know the name of the road you were heading on as you were heading towards Balmoral?
Yeah, it was Wilson Road.
And how would you describe the condition, firstly, the environmental conditions as you're heading along Wilson Drive towards Balmoral?
Well, it was obvious there was fires that had already gone through there. There was small spot fires around the place. It was hazy, but not visibility was still fair. And it was dark. There was no street lights in the area, so the area was quite darkened out.
And in terms of visibility, doing the best you can today, approximately how far ahead of your vehicle could you see as you're driving along Wilson Drive towards Balmoral?
In excess of the 150 metres, 200 metres probably.
And where were you seated in the vehicle?
I was directly behind the driver. It was Jeffrey, behind Jeffrey Keaton.
Jeffrey was driving, you're directly seated behind him.
That's correct.
From your observations, who was seated in the front passenger seat?
Andrew Dwyer was in the front.
And was anyone seated to your left?
Yeah, directly next to me was Timothy, and on the far side, on the other window, was Benjamin.
And do you recall, Mr. Quinteros, whether there were any vehicles in front of you as you're heading north towards Balmoral along Wilson Drive?
From the last point that I looked up, there was vehicles in front of us at a good distance, but due to the seating and the way you have to look out the front window, I put my head down after a while.
And do you know which vehicle or appliance was following immediately behind your appliance or not?
No, I can't say I do.
As you're heading along Wilson Drive, did something happen?
Yeah, we were driving along, and from just basically didn't see it, but just a big thump at first, and obviously now today I know we got struck by a tree.
And in that moment when you felt that thump, do you remember what was happening within the vehicle or what was happening to the vehicle?
Yeah, once I felt the thump, obviously because I had my head down, I think I was on my phone at the time. I looked up and all I could see was the roof liner directly in front of me. And then I felt the truck bounce twice. Yeah.
The vehicle came to a stop, correct?
Not after the thump. We rolled, we kept driving. Just confusion kicked in there, and I could feel the truck still moving, still driving. The horn was sounding for a few minutes after, can't tell you exactly. And then shortly after that, it was another bounce and then went for a tumble.
Do you recall shortly after the vehicle coming to a stop that RFS crew members attended upon the vehicle and the occupants within it?
Yeah, after the vehicle came to a stop, there was a few seconds of dead silence. And then shortly after, you could hear people screaming and calling out. Most and foremost was hearing radio calls. There was a radio in the truck that was still sounding, and the engine was still running.
And did you, with the assistance of RFS crew, self-extricate from the vehicle?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you do that by using a rope and a seatbelt?
At first, I couldn't reach anything to pull myself out. I was pinned by my leg. And then gentleman climbed onto the top of the truck and passed me down. I think it was the seatbelt. It was the seatbelt, and then I managed to pull myself out.
And by that time that you've managed to pull yourself out, had Timothy Penning been able to be extricated from the vehicle?
Tim climbed out himself after I had to help him come through. He was out cold.
And in relation to Benjamin Fraser, did you see him self-extricate, or was he already out by the time?
No, after a few seconds, after the truck came to a standstill, pretty much about the same time that you could hear people coming towards the truck, I saw Ben scurry through the top.
And were you and Tim and Ben transported to hospital at Liverpool?
Yeah, that's correct. Tim was in a separate ambulance, and myself and Ben travelled in the same ambulance to Liverpool Hospital.
And Mr. Quinteros, what injuries did you sustain as a result of the incident?
Laceration to the back of my ear, which had to be reattached. I fractured my back in 3 places, and I've lost feeling in the top right-hand side of my leg. They're the ones that are the main ones.
And as you said earlier, you're still volunteering for the New South Wales Rural Fire Service today?
And that's correct. I'm still currently a member.
Right, that concludes my examination.
Thank you. Mr. Carlos.
No questions, Your Honour.
Mr. Newton, do you have any questions?
No questions, Your Honour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quinteros. You're excused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honour, unfortunately, I cannot call the 2 remaining witnesses because they're unavailable today, and we'll need to call the remaining witness or witnesses tomorrow morning, which will then be followed by the family statements.
All right. Well, we'll stop now for the day, and we'll resume at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Sorry.